Sophie Cunningham went down. It did not look good. I heard her saying no from the court. It was heartbreaking. I am hoping, this is the hope, that it is more of like a bruised knee type thing. There aren't many updates as of yet, but she will be getting an MRI, so hopefully we'll hear something tomorrow. But judging by the way that the WNBA, expands on injuries, it's probably not gonna be a lot, but my guess is that—
Here's what really happened to Sophie Cunningham, and why everything you've been told about this story. I'm Jackson Riley, and after filtering through the noise and following the digital breadcrumbs, the truth about Sophie's injury isn't just different from what other channels are telling you, it completely destroys their entire narrative. Because while everyone else is fabricating lawsuits that don't exist and suspensions that never happened, they missed the most shocking revelation of all. Sophie Cunningham, the player whose season just ended, whose knee got destroyed, whose career hangs in the balance, she defended Bria Hartley. Not just defended her, called her a really good friend, but that's just the beginning of what they missed, because the real story here isn't about some fictional legal drama. It's about how losing Sophie Cunningham just exposed Caitlin Clark to the most dangerous situation of her career. And if you think I'm exaggerating, Clark has only played 13 games out of 35 this season. 13 out of 35. If you want the actual truth about what's happening in the WNBA instead of clickbait fiction, hit that subscribe button, because we're diving deep into the stories behind the stories that other channels won't touch. Here's what we're uncovering today. First, the friendship bombshell that completely destroys the victim narrative everyone's pushing. Then, the catastrophic numbers that show just how exposed Clark really is now, the systematic failure that's turning the WNBA into an injury epidemic. And finally, why this isn't just about one player or one team, it's about whether the league can protect its biggest stars or watch them get destroyed one by one. Let's start with what actually happened, because the temperature of the online conversation has been white hot with claims that couldn't be further from reality.
It's very, very sad and unfortunate what has happened to Sophie Cunningham. Sophie Cunningham, let's be clear here. Sophie Cunningham was targeted. Let's be very, very clear.
Okay, now let's get into rumor territory versus what's actually confirmed, because the digital breadcrumbs tell a completely different story than what's being pushed. Sophie Cunningham went on her Show Me Something podcast and said something that should shock everyone who's been following this narrative. Quote, "I know Bria and I'm actually really good friends with Bria. I think there was no ill intent. It was a basketball play. I was just in the wrong spot at the wrong time. Really good friends, not enemies, not victim and villain, friends." Sophie even asked her mother to delete the critical tweets about Hartley. Think about that for a sec. The player whose season just ended, whose knee got torn apart, whose playoff dreams got crushed. She's defending the person everyone's calling her attacker. But here's what they missed that changes everything. Multiple credible sources confirm there's no lawsuit. None. Zero. The competitor channels screaming about Sophie suing Bria Hartley. Completely fabricated. No official suspension either. The WNBA collective bargaining agreement provides immunity from individual player lawsuits. It's literally impossible for what they're claiming to happen. So while other channels are building entire videos around legal fiction, they're missing the real story. Sophie's friendship with Hartley exposes something deeper about WNBA culture that nobody wants to talk about. But the story doesn't end there, because losing Sophie Cunningham creates a crisis that goes way beyond one friendship or one injury. It exposes Caitlin Clark to career-threatening danger. Here are the numbers they don't want you to see. Clark has played 13 games out of— that's a 37% participation rate. Groin injury, ankle injury, quad injury. She's spent more time in medical facilities than on basketball court. And Sophie Cunningham was the one player willing to take the hits, dish some back, and send the message that Indiana wasn't going to let Clark get bulldozed every game. Official sources won't tell you this, but if you follow the digital breadcrumbs, a different picture emerges about Sophie's role. She publicly vowed to stick up for my teammates and was acquired specifically to be Clark's enforcer. When Clark got hammered with no whistle for the 10th time in a game, Sophie was the one getting in faces and mixing it up. Sophie wasn't just another player on Indiana's roster, she was Clark's bodyguard, her protector, her enforcer, and now she's gone for the season with a torn MCL that requires surgery and 4 months of recovery. You want to know what's really happening? Let me break down the protection racket that just collapsed. Every time Clark drove into the lane, she knew Sophie had her back. Every time opponents tried to send a message with hard fouls, Sophie was there to send one back. She gave Clark the confidence to play her game without constantly looking over her shoulder. What's your take on this? Should the league have done more to protect Sophie so she could protect Clark? Drop your thoughts below. Now Sophie's gone, and Clark is completely exposed. Think opponents won't notice? Think players like Bria Hartley won't smell blood in the water? Please. Clark just became the biggest target in the league with zero protection, but here's where it gets even worse, because Sophie's injury isn't happening in a vacuum. This is the third Indiana Fever guard to suffer a season-ending injury in the past 2 weeks. Sydney Colson tore her ACL. Ari McDonald broke her foot. Sophie's MCL is destroyed. 3 guards, 2 weeks. Season-ending injuries. That's not bad luck. That's a pattern. And it's exposing a league-wide crisis that goes way beyond one team or one incident.
You talk to Sophie Cunningham, she'll say, I'm trying to wrap her up, but I do think that's what...
The temperature of the online conversation suggests something deeper is happening here, and the signals point to systematic failure at every level. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert acknowledged officiating concerns at All-Star Weekend, noting increased foul calls, 18.7 per game, the highest since 2017, and rising flagrant fouls. But instead of addressing the real issue, what does Engelbert do? Talks about players needing to rest more, avoid overseas leagues. Really? That's the excuse? Newsflash. Caitlin Clark didn't play overseas. Sophie Cunningham didn't play overseas. They're both hurt because your league allows chaos under the rim while referees watch like spectators. I've been filtering through the noise, and the signals point to a league that's completely lost control. By mid-season, there were 141 documented injuries compared to 20. We're on pace to shatter injury records, and the league's response is to blame player schedules instead of looking at the obvious problem: the refs. My God, the refs. These people make WWE referees look competent. Sophie Cunningham gets knocked down bringing the ball up the floor. Obvious foul. And what happens? Play on. Sophie complains? Technical foul. That's the clown show we're dealing with. Meanwhile, players like Bria Hartley build reputations for dangerous play, and nothing happens until someone's season gets ended. Angel Reese gets her hair pulled. Rebecca Allen gets thrown down. Ariel Atkins gets targeted. And the league pretends it's all just tough basketball. But the story doesn't end there, because what's happening to Clark without Sophie reveals the true stakes of this injury epidemic. Here's what the other channels won't tell you about Clark's situation. She's not just missing games, she's missing critical development time in her second year. Every game Clark sits out injured is a game she's not building chemistry with teammates, not developing her leadership, not establishing herself as the face of the franchise, and now the one teammate who consistently had her back is gone for the season. Sophie emerged as Clark's vocal defender, the player willing to take technicals and ejections to protect Indiana's star. She wasn't afraid to get confrontational when officials let cheap shots slide. Think about the psychological impact on Clark. She already deals with being the most targeted player in the league. Every possession, every drive, every screen, opponents are looking to send a message. Sophie's presence sent one back. Now Clark's completely alone out there. The broader WNBA injury crisis makes this even more terrifying. When star players know they can't rely on officiating for protection, and their teammates are dropping like flies, how long before they start playing scared? How long before Clark pulls up short on drives, because she knows there's no backup coming? Connecting the dots here, this isn't just about Sophie and Clark. This is about a league systematically failing to protect its investments. The WNBA finally has mainstream attention because of players like Clark, Angel Reese, and others. But instead of protecting those draws, They're letting the league look like a demolition derby. You think fans want to watch their favorite players in walking boots and knee braces every week. You think they're paying money to see injury reports instead of highlight reel. What's fact and what's speculation? Let's break it down. The facts are brutal. Sophie's season is over. Clark has missed 22 games. Indiana has lost 3 guards to season-ending injuries in 2 weeks. The speculation is how long this can continue before the league faces serious consequences. Let me be brutally transparent here. I've been connecting these dots for weeks, and the pattern is undeniable. The WNBA's officiating crisis isn't just about bad calls, it's creating an environment where dangerous play gets rewarded and star players get destroyed. But here's what really makes this story devastating. Sophie Cunningham wasn't just having a good season, she was thriving. She found her role as Indiana's enforcer, the heart of their toughness, the player who stepped up when Clark needed protection most. She was having the best season of her career, proving she could be more than a role player, and it all got taken away by an injury that may have been preventable with better officiating and league accountability. So what happens now? Indiana faces a brutal reality. Their playoff hopes were already hanging by a thread with Clark missing so many games. Now they've lost their enforcer, their toughness, their edge. They're left exposed in every sense of the word. Clark's safety becomes the paramount concern. Without Sophie's protection, every game becomes a risk assessment. Is it worth driving into traffic when you know the whistle won't come? Is it worth playing aggressive defense when retaliation is guaranteed? The psychological warfare that Sophie prevented is now open season on Clark, and with her injury history this season, that's terrifying. Ready for the truth that nobody wants to discuss? This injury epidemic isn't random. It's the predictable result of a league that prioritizes toughness over player safety, that lets dangerous plays slide because controversy sells tickets. But there's a cost to that strategy, and Indiana's paying it, Clark's paying it, Sophie's paying it, and eventually the league will pay it when fans get tired of watching their favorite players get destroyed. The legal fiction that other channels are pushing misses the real legal implications here. While there's no lawsuit between Sophie and Bria, the WNBA could face much bigger legal problems if this injury epidemic continues. Player safety lawsuits against the league itself. Insurance companies questioning whether WNBA games are too dangerous to cover. Collective bargaining fights over player protection. The real lawsuit threats aren't between players. They're between players and a league that's failing to protect them. Here's where the competitive intelligence really gets interesting. While other channels fabricate legal drama for clicks, they're missing the economic reality. Clark-related content generates 4.8 times the engagement of average WNBA content. Every game she misses costs the league viewers, revenue, and momentum. Sophie's injury doesn't just hurt Indiana, it hurts the entire WNBA ecosystem. Less protection for Clark means more injury risk. More injury risk means fewer games. Fewer games means less engagement. Less engagement means the league's growth stall. The narrative temperature around player safety has reached a breaking point, and Sophie's injury is the catalyst that could force real change or expose the league's inability to protect its stars. But that brings us to the inevitable question: what happens if Clark gets seriously injured next? What happens if the league's biggest draw gets taken out because they lost their protector and the refs continue to let chaos reign? The answer is catastrophic for everyone involved. Indiana's championship hopes, Clark's career trajectory, the WNBA's mainstream momentum. It all hangs in the balance now that Sophie's protection is gone. So yes, other channels can keep fabricating lawsuit drama and suspension fiction, but the real story is much more serious. It's about a league failing to protect its investments, a star player left completely exposed, and a system that rewards dangerous play while punishing the players who try to create accountability. Sophie Cunningham's friendship with Bria Hartley reveals something profound about WNBA culture. Players understand this is bigger than individual incidents. They know the system is broken. Sophie defending Hartley isn't just about forgiveness. It's about recognizing that individual players aren't the problem. The lack of systemic protection is, but forgiveness doesn't solve the crisis. Sophie's still injured, Clark's still exposed, Indiana's still missing their enforcement, and the WNBA is still pretending this is all just part of the game. The temperature of the online conversation will only get hotter as more players drop and more families speak out. Sophie's mother's deleted tweets about Hartley being disgruntled and plain mean show the emotional toll this takes on everyone involved. But Sophie's own defense of Hartley shows the maturity and perspective that the league itself lacks. Reading the signals from across the WNBA landscape, this is the moment that defines whether the league grows up or continues letting its stars get destroyed for the sake of manufactured toughness. What's your opinion on where this goes from here? Can the WNBA protect Clark without Sophie? Will Indiana's playoff hopes survive this injury apocalypse? And most importantly, how long before fans get tired of watching their favorite players in medical facilities instead of on basketball courts? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this conversation is just getting started. If you want continued coverage of the stories behind the stories that other channels won't touch, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. We're the only place getting you the truth behind the WNBA's biggest controversy. And share this video with anyone who's been following the fabricated lawsuit coverage, because they deserve to know what actually happened instead of legal fiction designed for clicks. The truth is always more complicated and more important than the headlines suggest. That's what we do here. We dig deeper, connect the dots, and give you the real story behind the WNBA's biggest moments. Sophie Cunningham's injury changes everything for Caitlin Clark and Indiana. The question is whether the league will learn from this crisis or let it happen again.